This is the WGNS Action Line, talking with Rutherford County newsmakers about what matters most to you. Now, your host, Scott Walker.
Right now that time, 8:17, you're tuned to WGNS, your good neighbor station since 1947. And in studio with us this morning, we have Bill Anderson, and Bill is with the Garden Patch Thrift Shop and also Greenhouse Ministries here in Murfreesboro. How are you this morning?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I am doing good. So first off, talk a little bit about Garden Patch, and I know it is, of course, under Greenhouse Ministries, but tell us a little bit more about that.
Well, Garden Patch is the outreach part of Greenhouse that helps us generate revenue to fund our programs that we do there at Greenhouse. It also is a great place for community. It brings a place for people to come in during the day, and everybody there is kind of like old friends. We kind of know everybody's grandkids and all the stories of what's going on. I like to say it's a community outreach in a way, more than just generating revenue.
You've got kind of an interesting background because you have been involved in, it sounds like, a lot of different things over the years, but in addition to being intertwined with helping out and being a part of Greenhouse and the Garden Patch, you were also recently helping out in East Tennessee and North Carolina after Hurricane Helene caused all that damage and the flooding.
Oh yeah, it was a pleasure to be called on. I had actually were scheduled to go right at the same time to lead a men's conference, and when all that happened, it just turned out that the majority of the guys that was in our group were pilots or first responders. It was amazing how God kind of orchestrated that. So we all got together and decided, instead of us doing a prayer group, let's all see what we can do to help. And so many of us went into Sevierville and used that as our home base, and we brought planes and stuff in that we had and flew supplies into, personally for me, I went mostly into Newport area, but we went all the way up through Asheville area, dropping off supplies, water, medical, clothing, everything we possibly could.
Now, are you a pilot yourself?
Oh yeah, I've been a pilot for several years.
Helicopter, airplane?
I do both. I do. If I had enough strength left in me and mental capacity, I think I would go even further to be like a transport pilot, but my age is kind of playing against me on that because you have a very limited frame before you have to retire.
When you're there and you're helping out those areas and you're flying in, what types of things are you flying in?
For me, I flew a lot of water. I've never seen so much water fit in a plane. We also flew in clothing, medical supplies, food, lots of blankets, cases of Hot Pockets, pretty much everything that was just donated from all around the nation that came in to help this community.
You're talking about heavy loads there.
Oh yes, yeah, and that's why it takes so many, because if you're small, if you're flying in these small planes and helicopters, which you have to because of that situation, because the roads were impassable and there was very little landing area. So a lot of helicopters, and of course you do have weight barriers that you have to take into consideration, but thank God we had a lot of people who brought their own equipment in to fly in. We were pretty quick. People asked me how much I got to see. I said not a lot, because you'd get in, you'd hover. We never actually landed. We would hover, they would come in, unload it, we would go right back up, go get another load.
You must be a pretty skilled pilot then. I mean, you're talking about pretty tough stuff.
Absolutely not. I tell you,
poor people on the ground.
Yeah, I was praying the whole time. I was a little nervous because I mostly fly fixed wing. It's been a while since I've done any chopper, and I was praying the whole time.
How many helicopters were you seeing in the air at the same time?
I know in our group there was 6. There was also another group that was coming out of just outside of Asheville coming in too, because we sent some people went that way, some people came together. It just kind of depended on logistics and where people had their planes.
Talking about being a pilot, helicopter, rated for helicopter and airplane, what brings you to want to do something at Greenhouse Ministries? Because that's really far and in between.
Oh, yeah. Well, my background is pretty diverse. Most of it's been in entertainment, some way, shape, or form. I've always been kind of in sales, if you will. When I decided that it was time for me to get in my serious phase of life, which is where I feel like I am now, I knew that all I wanted to do was serve God. Send me where you can and use my skills wherever I can. I was living in East Tennessee, and after my mother passed, who had lived with me the last 7 years of her life, my brother was basically all I had left, and he lived here in Murfreesboro. And I came and visited and decided that I wanted to relocate. And I'm like, God, if you want me here, you'll locate me there. And it came across a posting, and I came and met with Christy Sanford, who's our executive director at Greenhouse. And you just know, I just knew when I walked in, that's where I was supposed to be. I had already taken a regular position with a non-Christian company, making way more money. But I just didn't feel that that's where I was supposed to be. This seemed like home to me. The fact that I'm able to use my past skills to bring that to the table here, whereas normally, if my heart wasn't so much ministry, they wouldn't be able to afford to hire. I mean, not trying to sound egotistical but, I know my background and I know what I could bring and help them. And we've seen such growth, I just am excited to be there and see everything that we can do every single day when I see us serve people and I see people walk out with food and clothes, and we're able to give them free furniture when they're in need, and all those top things like that. Just that's what fuels this for me. It's nice. I went out not long ago and I wore my Greenhouse sweater and I went to Cracker Barrel, and I had 3 people come up to me in Cracker Barrel telling me, hey, I just want you to know how much Greenhouse means to me and what they've done for me. And that's why we're doing it. That's why I'm here.
So when you follow God's plan, ultimately here, you're not on this path where you're trying to make a lot of money. You're on a path where you feel like this is where I need to be. Absolutely.
And if you do that, he'll take care of the rest. And he has. I mean, there's, been tight moments where you've had to pinch where you normally wouldn't pinch. But then God always seems to turn it around to where you have excess of the things that you're praying for.
So if you've been on this, work life where you make more money versus being in this work life where you don't make as much money, do you feel more alive when you're on that path where you're doing something where you believe this is where God wants you to be versus the other path where you're making a whole lot more money compared to what you are making today in the nonprofit sector?
For me, I was going through the routine in the secular, and I was filling everybody's pockets, and I never was seeing anything go out in our community. I had a nice paycheck coming in, but what was it doing? Here, every single day, I mean, it's a ministry. We obviously, have frustrations, but every single day I see people getting blessed. Every day. It's never not been a day at Greenhouse that I don't see people getting blessed. Because of that makes up for anything in the world, and it makes me look forward to every single day serving. I consider this my opportunity to serve.
As humans, we're not designed to be alone. We're not designed to do life by ourselves. And you sometimes hear stories about millionaires out there who become greeters at Walmart just because they want to smile and make somebody's day as they walk in that door. It could be any door, but that's where they decide to do it. It doesn't matter where they are. But there's different times in people's lives where they do take a turn and they decide, well, I want to be on this new path where I feel like I'm not only being fulfilled, but I'm fulfilling the lives of other people by helping them out and just talking to them.
We have, people who don't have 2 cents to rub together, as well as people who have fortunes serving side by side. And you'd never know the difference between the two because their heart is all about ministry and about serving. One of the reasons that I went into ministry was because I had a friend of mine who has since passed, very wealthy, and you would never know. Because they were, as soon as God was putting it in the bank, they were putting it out, and they were putting it into community. And if the truth be known, how many homes they've built and how many cars they've paid for and how many doctor bills and everything that they've done for people, I think we'd be amazed. And I think that's the truth. There's a lot of people in all different aspects who just get it. You know what I'm saying? God doesn't give us blessings to store up. He gives us blessings to pour out. And the word also tells us if we honor him, he'll honor us. So I think that we have guarantees in these type things. And I don't do it for recognition at all. I do it just because it really is what makes me get up every single day and makes me feel happy when I see people getting blessed. And Greenhouse, to me, is my family.
Do we have these quiet millionaires living right here in Rutherford County who are helping out in a major way, but nobody would know?
Oh, yeah, sure. Not just Greenhouse. I mean, if you talk to any nonprofit around, and it maybe not even nonprofit, I saw the other day when I was leaving the store, there was a lady who stopped on the side of the road. There was an older lady. It was right before the snow. And there was an older lady on the side of the road, and I saw this lady stopping and getting her in her SUV and helping her load her stuff up to take. And I know the lady. She actually took her home so she would not be out in the snow. Some people wonder what they can do, and they think that I can't do a lot because I don't have the space or I don't have the resources. But helping one person is a huge step. If each person could help one person, this community would be in a lot better situation than we are.
And sometimes that helping somebody else could be as simple as giving somebody a ride home who doesn't have a car.
Absolutely, absolutely. It doesn't take much. I tell my staff all the time, I says, every day when people come into the store, I want you to be Jesus. And being Jesus, to me, can be as simple as smiling at them and greeting them, especially if they live in isolation. You might be the only person they encounter that day. At least when they come in and see someone at Greenhouse, they walk away having felt loved.
How long have you been a part of Garden Patch?
Almost 2 years. It seems like it's been a lot more because we have really gone through a lot of changes and growth, and currently expanding into another building, which we'll talk about down the road. But we are expanding in a lot of different directions.
What did they say to you when you said, hey, I need to go to East Tennessee and to North Carolina to help out?
Oh, absolutely. That's not a problem. I wouldn't be there, honestly, if they were not in the same mindset of me. And the same way around with them, is that if I wasn't in that ministry mindset, it wouldn't work. But because they get it and I get it, and we're here just to make a difference in people's lives, even if it just seems like a bit, then we're going to do it. And they get it. When I go up and say, hey, I need to go for a few days to this, yeah, hey, go do it. What can we help you with? In fact, excuse me, this last trip, I told them that they sent over 2 shopping carts of medical supplies that I was able to take in. And it's beautiful.
Again, with us this morning, Bill Anderson, the general manager of the Garden Patch Thrift Shop here in Murfreesboro, which is part of Greenhouse Ministries. Going back to that pilot side of you, at what point in life did you say, hey, I want to get my pilot's license?
As soon as I could have a memory. I was always fascinated with the planes, and I had the opportunity at a young age to start doing some flying and not have to pay for it, which was right up my budget, if it fit perfectly. And then it just over the years, you do one, then you do another, and then you decide, well, I'm going to get a certification in this and another certification in that. And I say that I think I'm done with all my certifications, but who knows?
I think any of us out there who decide to do something later in life, maybe 10 years from now, I decide to do X, Y, Z. But the point is, if you're always bettering yourself in some way, then you're making a difference not only in your own life, but in the community around you, if it's something that can lend a hand in helping somebody else. And in this case, obviously, you getting your pilot's license years ago has helped the community out.
Oh, absolutely. I don't believe that God willy-nilly puts anything together. The Word tells us that everything happens for a purpose. Because for me, again, I came up from a family that had no money. I could not have, on my own merit, been able to afford to do things like that. But God always seemed to put the right people in my life to make those things happen, if you will. And up until the hurricanes were a blessing to me for a couple of reasons. But one big reason is because I had started questioning why I had learned some of the things I had done, because I've never used flying as anything but just personal recreation and just my alone time with God. But when this happened and I was called on to be able to do this, it's like, okay, I see you, God, now you waited like 20 years to put it into play, but He put it into play. We serve to honor God, is my viewpoint. But I think that feeling of accomplishment, or that feeling of self-satisfaction, if you will, I think that that's a good feedback that God gives us, to say, that's that pat on the back, And it made me, I was crying when I saw the devastation, and I did have a couple of interactions that really put things in perspective for me. But I will tell you, being up in the air and knowing that me just giving a little bit of my time to do those type things, I knew that it was making a huge difference, because when you see somebody just ecstatic over getting a case of water or a shirt or some socks, it really makes you think really, really hard, and it makes you very thankful for what you do have.
And you brought up something else that was interesting. You said you got that pilot's license so many years ago, and you never really put it to use for something like this. Mm-hmm. Of course, you never knew when you got that license that it'd be put to use for something like this. But it's interesting because it's kind of like the guy who in 1975 takes a CPR class while he's in high school, never, ever has the opportunity to use it until one day, maybe he's 55, 60 years old, and he has that opportunity arise at an event he's at, or maybe it's somebody in the family who needs CPR, and then they save that one life. And then you realize, oh yeah, I learned it for this occasion right here.
Yeah, God orchestrates every step. One of my favorite scriptures is Proverbs 3, 5, and 6, where he tells us to lean not into our own understanding and always acknowledge him, and he'll direct our paths and make them straight. And that is what we're talking about, is just trust God. He'll take you on your journey, and he'll put that path in place. And each one of those things we learn, each one of those people we encounter, even the negatives, they're all part of that stepping stone to make that path where God's taking us.
That timeline of learning a trade, learning technical aid 20, 30 years ago, and then using it in saving a life or whatever the case is 20, 30 years later, that's in God's time, which that may be like a minute to God versus our 20 years.
Sometimes God moves real fast. Like my move here, I said, God, if you want me there, you'll orchestrate it. And boom, he orchestrated it, and then the decision to be here was within a week. And then probably 2 weeks later, I was moving in down here. The funny thing is I've never ever thought I'd live in Murfreesboro, but I have come to love this more than any place I've ever lived. And where the garden patch is walking distance to the square. So usually when I go out to lunch, I'll walk. I always sit there and say I'm walking in my own Mayberry, because it just makes me kind of feel like I'm that small town, and we know each other, and you get to know the people in the restaurants, the people at the cleaners, the hardware store. It's a wonderful piece that God still, I feel, has his hand governing.
Let's talk a little bit about giving, donating, gift giving, because I think all of that goes hand in hand with the garden patch and with Greenhouse. It's kind of like when you give somebody a gift, the gift in that gift itself may not be in what that person receives, but instead what the person is giving, the person who donates or who wraps a present and gives it to somebody for Christmas. Part of that gift giving and that feeling you get when you do give something to somebody else is valuable. I mean, it's big, and it's how it's supposed to be, but sometimes we don't always see it that way.
Oh, absolutely. I often say I wish that our donors could see firsthand what their donations are doing. And it doesn't matter whether it's financial or whether it's a sofa you're donating, whatever. Those things turn around and make a huge difference. And I encourage donors to come and volunteer a day, to be part of the ministry and just see firsthand what's going on. I think if more people were aware, my biggest challenge is to get people to understand that we are a thrift store, but to me, it's much deeper than that. We are a full ministry. The purpose of everything that we sell in the thrift shop is to continue our ministry in Rutherford County and to put food in these people's bellies and to give them classes, to help them get them a home, help them with their utility bills. There's so many programs that Greenhouse has, and every donation that people give, that all goes into that. And I think people just are not aware of just how impactful their gifts are. You
mentioned earlier in the interview about how some of those who do come there for help, just like some of those who you gave water and other supplies to, they literally have nothing left physically in their life. That's got to be a tough place to be, but at the same time, you were talking about how appreciative people can be.
It's amazing. And last week I had the opportunity to, they call baptism by fire. I was in the ministry office and Christy said, Bill, can you go be a peer counselor? We had so many people in need. And I'm like, well, I've never done this before. I'm not sure what the process is. And I went in there, and boy, I tell you, I had the best time because I wear a lot of hats, as you said earlier. And, it's like, a couple of the hats I wear is, I'm a pastor. We just planted a church this weekend, but I'm also a psychologist. Which kind of conflicts sometimes, because it's like I've got school knowledge, but I also have my faith knowledge. But I'm going to tell you, it was the best opportunity for God to use those, me being a peer counselor, hearing these people's stories about why they were there. And some people, they've been on public assistance and stuff forever and ever and ever, but then you meet people who are regular Joes out there. They've been paying all their bills, and then all of a sudden something goes wrong and they just can't. It's either starve or come get help. And that kind of puts you in a different mindset when you look at those people. And to be able to sit there and love on them and let them know, hey, you know what? I'm sorry you're going through this, but we are here to help you. My favorite part is saying, can I pray with you? And being able to pray with them about their needs, and then to hand them their little slip and send them over to get some food, clothing, whatever. It feeds me, but I see them smiling when they're leaving. And I think that's why we do it over there. It's just, if you can be Jesus again, like I say, to somebody and just touch them. It doesn't have to be a lot. If somebody's down and out and you hand them a honey bun and a Pepsi Cola, you just bless their day. So you don't have to do it in massive ways, and it carries on. You see it. And you do encounter people who just don't get it, or they're entitled, and they may have the wrong attitude. But you know what? We're still going to bless you anyway. I mean, you can come in there mean as a rattlesnake. We're still going to love on you and bless you as best as we can. I think that's what Jesus would have done.
It seems like in today's age of social media and people having to have whatever it is they want to buy right then and there, maybe on Amazon, it's delivered within an hour after you click that button. But in this day and age, people are impatient, and there is a sense of entitlement. I think you have 20-year-olds out there who they believe they're entitled to whatever it is in front of them. They should get it, and they should get it right then. But how do you deal with that whenever it comes to working at somewhere like Greenhouse, working at somewhere like the Garden Patch where folks do get it?
I think that it's definitely God giving you the ability to do it. And for me, I've been doing this for a long time. I've been dealing in ministry for quite a while. For me, it's a lot easier, just because I am very a matter of fact, like, hey, I'm gonna love on you, but hey, we're not gonna act silly here. We're not gonna show out. And
do you ever have to say, look, you're not entitled to this. You're getting this help because of all these people around you?
Well, yeah, in a sort of way we do. I mean, yeah, but have we had to ask people to leave? Yes, we've had to, unfortunately, but that is a very rare exception. Most of the people that we get are very appreciative of everything that's going on, and they genuinely are in need and are happy to receive whatever they can. But you do have those people that are not as nice and and a little bit harder to deal with. But we have so many wonderful different personality groups at Greenhouse. We have the sweet little I'm gonna love you to death and nurture you and take care of you people. We have the people who are, I'm gonna take care of you, but this is how we're gonna do it. We're gonna go by this step and this step and this step. And that's more of me. I'm gonna love on you, but we're gonna follow procedure here.
Yeah.
The mixture of those kind of people we have working and volunteering at Greenhouse, it kind of works out well because we're fairly equipped to handle about any kind of situation.
Again, with us this morning, Bill Anderson, General Manager of the Garden Patch Thrift Shop here in Murfreesboro, which is under Greenhouse Ministries. And I guess the truth is we need all these different types of people in our life anyway.
Oh, yeah. If you're not challenged, you're not doing it. I was very well aware when I went into ministry that it was going to be challenging, and it is, because there's, I always use the old Southern, slay, there's some people I want to throw hot grits on some days. And then I'm like, I'm going to pray for them instead. And it is hard. I mean, some days you just encounter those people, but then for that one person that you encountered that pushes your patience to the edge, you get those 10 people that come in and just radiate the reason why you're there, and you can it just doesn't matter anymore to me, the negative. If I focused on the negative, I would have quit this stuff a long time ago. And but it's the people that I see genuinely being blessed and receiving it, let's put it that way, receiving it, that keep me doing what I'm doing and keeps Greenhouse doing what we're doing.
Again, Bill Anderson from the Garden Patch and Greenhouse Ministries on the air with us.
Now, more than ever, start your mornings with WGNS. The Action Line with Bart Walker. Weekday mornings at 8:10 on WGNS, AM, FM, online.
Looking for a lift kit for your truck or Jeep and need the right experts to install it? Look no further than Tire World in Murfreesboro, Smyrna, and Laverne.
Tire World, we keep your family rolling.
The Action Line on FM 101.9 and AM 1450 Murfreesboro, FM 100.5 Smyrna. Listen and watch at WGNSradio.com.
We are celebrating our 78th anniversary. Our first full day of broadcasting was January 1st, 1947. With us today on the air in studio, we have Bill Anderson. He is the general manager of the Garden Patch Thrift Shop, which is part of Greenhouse Ministries. So over the years, maybe even outside of Greenhouse, but what was a turning point in your life that you said, I want to do more to help others?
I don't know. That's a good question. I've never really thought about it. I've always been kind of wanting to help out. I've always been, since a kid, volunteering for whatever I could. I think the serious part of my life came, oh, Lord, you asked me a tough question. I think that if I really want to put where I really, really got serious with it, it's not been that long ago. My mom, like I said, lived with me the last 7 years of her life, and she went quick. We didn't really expect it, and when that happened, it made me really start evaluating life and evaluating what I was doing and where I was going. I was already involved in ministry and doing things like helping and stuff like that, but I just started evaluating my life and seeing, Mom went in the snap of a finger, and what was I going to do? Because when I passed, had I made a difference? Because I was highly educated, so it's like there was a lot there I could bring to the table, and I love serving. I guess that would be where I went into full speed, and that's only been 5 years ago. I've always been involved in helping. I think it was just the way I was raised. Did you help where you could? We were in South Carolina when Hurricane Hugo hit, and we lost our home. I remember seeing so many people helping where they could then, and it's just always been the thing, even since childhood, where if there was a need and you could help, you help. That was just how I was raised. I guess the best answer is full speed 5 years ago, full speed when Mom died. It was just like, okay, God, send me, and that's what the last 5 years especially have been. I walked totally away from corporate and went strictly into ministry.
I think it's safe to say in life we get on board with being full steam ahead at, let's say, for example, helping others when tragedy strikes. That is often when those turning points happen.
Yeah, absolutely, because no matter how old you are, your parents are superheroes. You think they're always going to be there. Even in your 50s and stuff, when your parents pass, that's a tough situation, and it really makes you re-examine things, because this person you think is a superhero, God takes them. And you see all these other people around you pass, one right after another. I tell you what, 2020 was definitely a huge slap in the face from God that it's time to get off the pot and start doing some things. That's what I did. In 2020, I was just like, I could sit here and worry about all these things, and I could sit here and be the victim to the loss and death, and 2020 was hard for all of us, really. But I didn't. In fact, I partnered up with a ministry in Sevierville. We opened up a coffee shop. I opened that coffee shop in September of 2020 and planted it for a place for a community to come. So that was really where I just went full steam in, and I haven't been able to stop yet.
Sometimes people realize those secrets to life of helping others, of being there for others when they're at the very bottom of their life, and I've seen homeless out there who they're more giving and caring than a lot of people you meet who live what you would consider a regular life out there. But there's homeless out there who do more for others than we could ever imagine.
Oh, absolutely. And, and we see that at Greenhouse. You some of the kindest people. We have volunteers who come in and work, and they're also clients. We send them home with food and clothing, help them that way, but they're right there the next morning, and they're handing out food, and they're handing out clothes, or they're working on a building or cutting grass or helping unload a truck. I mean, it's just, they're more like showing up and saying, hey, where you need me, put me there. Sometimes you have volunteers that'll show up and say, oh, well, I'll do this, but I won't do that. And these people that I'm talking about, they show up and say, wherever you need me, I'm going to go, because they can appreciate it. There's that old saying, you can't appreciate the sun if you've never been in the darkness.
Bill Anderson has been with us. If you'd like to learn more about Greenhouse or the Garden Patch, visit greenhousemin, that's min.org. And Bill, thanks for joining us.
Oh, thank you for having me.